So let's get right down to it. This week, we're going to start with your Netflix top 10. I love doing this because it kind of gives you sort of a feeling of, you know, what people are watching and flocking to, and kind of gives you a sense of kind of where we're at as a society and a community. I mean, the Tiger King craze, come on. Crazy. Only during a pandemic. So let's get right down to it. There were quite a few shakeups this week. I thought this week's top 10 was very interesting. It was almost completely different from last week, which when we originally started this segment about 2 months ago, we only saw little tiny minuscule changes. And now all of a sudden it's like every single week, new. So let's get right down to it. One of my favorite things to say on this podcast. Coming in at number 10, where this has been quite surprising because over the last month and a half or so, it's been like holding strong in the middle of the top 10. So coming in at the top 10 is number 10, Coco Melon. All you parents out there know what I'm talking about. Coming in at number 9 is a really funny throwback comedy that is actually in my recommendations list for this week because I just find it corny funny and sometimes raunchy. Coming in at number 9 is Your Highness. Coming in at number 8 is Love Happens. Number 7, Innocent. Coming in at number 6, which has been probably in the top 10 for the last 3 weeks, is a Netflix original limited series called The Circle, a social media competition. Coming in at number 5 is a really fun one for all of you young families out there. Madagascar 3, Europe's Most Wanted. Yay, I love Madagascar. I like to move it. You're like Coming in at number 4 is brand new to the top 10, Green Zone. Coming at number 3, I can honestly say that this was awesome. I watched it on Saturday evening. It came out on Netflix on Saturday and stars Amanda Seyfried, and it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. I only had a few little things that I would have changed, and they were kind of minor things. Other than that, I really enjoyed the movie. I think it was creative, it was well done, and it was just something really cool to watch on a Saturday night. So coming in at number 3, and it's holding strong in that spot for the last several days, is Things Heard and Seen. Coming in at number 2, which was last week's number 1. If you were a follower of AfterBuzz TV on Twitter, you would know that they are ranting and raving so much positive vibes about this series in particular. Coming in at number 2 is Shadowbone. And then coming in at number 1 for your top ranked movie of this week for your Netflix top 10 in the US is The Mitchells versus the Machines. This is a Netflix original animated film about a family called the Mitchells who kind of find themselves in a robot apocalypse, which kind of puts a really big halt and damper on their cross-country road trip, and they end up finding themselves as the world's weirdest family trying to pretty much save humankind. So that is your number 1. Number 1 in your top of the Netflix for this week is The Mitchells versus the Machines. And this movie will be starring Danny McBride, who is also in Your Highness. You have Chrissy Teigen, John Legend, Conan O'Brien, Maya Rudolph, and more. So that sounds like a really cool cast. Okay, now it is time for my Netflix recommendations for this week, where I bring you several recommendations, anywhere from 3 to 6, of stuff that I can personally say that I enjoyed. The number 1 mainstay on my recommendations list, as you all know, because I am a diehard fan, is Grey's Anatomy. What I say every week that I love about Grey's Anatomy is the fact that Netflix has all of the old seasons. So if you are someone who's a binger, like I am, I don't get to watch a lot of television, so I'm a binger when I do get to, because I'm always trying to catch up on things. You know, this is something that myself and Leo Rush talked about on this podcast, is when you are a pro athlete, you know, it's always go, hustle, work. So you don't have a lot of time for things like TV. So what I like to do is find things that are very binge worthy or exciting and kind of use that to distract me when I'm doing things like cardio on a treadmill or so forth and so on. And that's what's great about Grey's Anatomy, is Netflix has all of the previous seasons. So seasons 1 through 16. And then if you are someone who has a subscription for Hulu, they have the current season on Hulu, season 17, and I think they're about 13 episodes into season 17. So it's just super awesome. One of my other recommendations is in your top 10 this week, Your Highness, with Danny McBride and James Franco and Natalie Portman. Just a really funny sort of corny movie, you know, some slapstick humor. Also a recommendation on my list is a movie that I really enjoyed. It made me laugh a lot. And I think it came out a couple years ago, and it came out at the perfect time because I don't know how well it would be received today, but it kind of just makes you take a step back and laugh. I think the movie was very well done, and the actors did such a great job in this movie. So one of my other recommendations, if you want to have a laugh together, you know, if you're a young adult couple, married couple, single, whatever, what have you, just a really fun Netflix and chill sort of order a pizza and watch this movie. You won't regret it. Coffee and Kareem. It follows a white cop who starts dating a black woman who has a son from a previous relationship, and the son does not take kindly to his mother dating a white cop. And they end up, he tries to put a hit out on the cop, and that turns around and backfires on him, and the scenario goes down, and it's basically him and this cop that he originally didn't like because the cop was dating his mom, and they have to end up trying to save the mom and stop a drug bust with a corrupt police agency and being on the run and all this other stuff. It's just really funny and crazy, and I think it's also somewhat of a social commentary that kind of just takes you a step back from the situation. Okay. One of my other recommendations is a Netflix original series that has been doing a great job and has officially been renewed for a season 3 on Netflix. Virgin River. Virgin River actually stars the actress who played the mother in Smallville, the actor who played the doctor in Heart of Dixie, and it also stars one of the doctors from, I think, like seasons 13 through 14 of Grey's Anatomy. Virgin River follows this woman who leaves Los Angeles to go to a much northern part of California to kind of start over after her husband dies suddenly and tragically, and she tries to pick up the pieces and start over in her life as a nurse practitioner and licensed midwife. So I think it's a very cool series about the transitioning from a big booming busting city to more of like a small town sort of close-knit community, which is something I can definitely relate to, moving from Massachusetts to Kentucky. So I really appreciated how they actually did this series. Very, very interesting, very, very dramatic. Coming in for a family recommendation, which is an awesome throwback. It definitely helped define my childhood. Starring Robin Williams and, oh my gosh, Julia Roberts, I almost forgot her name, is Hook. I love this movie so much. Hook. Definitely make your kids watch this movie. Yes. Do it. And then my last recommendation, since I briefly mentioned that it's also in the number 3 spot in this week's Netflix Top 10, is starring Amanda Seyfried with Things Heard and Seen. I really enjoyed this movie. It's about this young married couple in the 80s who have a daughter, and they decide to move, I believe, from Worcester, Massachusetts to someplace in upstate New York and kind of start over for her husband to have, you know, a job that would help further his career. And they move into a house that she doesn't realize had something really bad happen in it. Not just once, but twice. And you're going to see how history may or may not repeat itself, and kind of the unraveling of a narcissistic psychopath, basically, with some haunting sort of ghost-like undertones that really kind of slowly transition themselves into the plot. And growing up in a bona fide New England haunted house from the time I was 5 to 22, I can definitely relate. All right. And that rounds out my 6 recommendations for this week. As far as HBO Max, I recently got this app and I've been very much immersing myself with what little spare time I have. So I came up with, let's see, 3 awesome, in my opinion, recommendations on the HBO Max app. So if you have HBO Max, I highly recommend The Big Bang Theory. They have all seasons. It is such feel-good comedy, very reminiscent of How I Met Your Mother, you know, that sort of genre. It's just feel-good TV. I really like it. It's funny, it's quirky, it's awkward. I love it. It's just funny. Funny. You know, kind of just makes you laugh at yourself. I'm very nerdy, so I just definitely enjoyed the comedy aspect. And if you can't laugh at yourself, then what are you doing in life, you know? One of my other recommendations for the HBO Max app is Mortal Kombat, which recently came out. I really, really enjoyed it, and I didn't mind that all of the figures and characters that you come to love in Mortal Kombat weren't featured in this film. I liked that aspect because, to me, that was smart writing in the fact that it allows to add for sequels, in sort of like a series, like Avengers, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, Black Widow. They all kind of, end up with the same sort of genre, because they're all interlinked with, different, multiverses and crossovers and story arcs and whatnot. I think Mortal Kombat has the same thing. So if you tell the entire thing in one movie, you limit yourself. Whereas if you cut it up, you can take your time and take people on a really entertaining journey and ride, so to speak. So that's why I enjoyed Mortal Kombat, and I think they're going to definitely have some really fun moves to play off of going forward. And my last recommendation, this was very interesting for me because growing up, I would probably say high school and into college, and probably for like a couple years after college, and I was already wrestling at that point anyway, I had like orangey red hair, and so many people for about almost 10 years would tell me that I looked like the girl from True Blood. I had no idea what that meant because I never watched True Blood growing up. I was always like the opposite version of a hipster, where I didn't watch things until after they were cool or after they were already syndicated and they weren't like, brand new anymore. So you could binge them. I'm a lifelong binger of television. So I didn't know what they were talking about. So I got into True Blood on the HBO Max app, and I now get it. I get it now. And I have to say, I loved her in the Daredevil original series. So I take that as a huge compliment. Deborah Ann Wall, thank you. You're beautiful. Awesome. So I really got into True Blood. I really loved like the Louisiana bayou sort of feel because I'm obsessed with going to New Orleans and Louisiana. I was very sad to miss WrestleCon that year. And so, yeah, I just really loved it. I really liked the... I'm probably starting season 3 right now. And I thought it was just really cool, the storytelling and the different cultures within the vampire communities meets werewolves and shapeshifters and humans and all this really cool stuff. So I think it's really cool. I highly recommend it. True Blood. So rounding out my 3 recommendations is True Blood, Big Bang Theory, and Mortal Kombat on your HBO Max.